Sure to welcome you this morning at an event that promises to inspire, inform, provoke an invitation to explore the world of science. We are happy to celebrate the 70 years of the institutional life of the Puce, which is why we have invited four prestigious speakers. They are researchers, scientists, and entrepreneurs who are making significant contributions to society. Each of them will present us with a unique vision of the world and guide us through their experiences, their discoveries, and their ideas. To start our presentations, may call in Mark Mueller, entrepreneur, scientist, and doctor in molecular biology, focused on research for new therapies against cancer and Alzheimer's diseases with the topic, How to Make a Living from Science. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues and students, I know there are many students in the audience, thank you for joining me today. I stand before you to share my personal journey. So what I have to say today is all about me pretty much, but I'll throw in a little bit of extra science just to make it kind of interesting. And I'd like to share my journey from the world of science into business and entrepreneurship. And through this journey, I want to shed light on the powerful synergy between basic science, which is what I started out doing, and applied science, and how this fusion can drive innovation, revolutionize perhaps medicine, and sustain critical research. My experience was profoundly shaped by collaborations with influential colleagues, mentors, and students like you. I learned from everybody, including students. So today, I invite you to embark on this journey with me to explore a bridge between the ivory tower of science and academia and the marketplace, which is where things are sold and business transpires. And this is a scientific discovery I've followed through my entrepreneurial ambition, let's just call it for lack of a better word. And then I will end my talk with some personal experiences and why, as students, you may want to seriously consider biotechnology, bioengineering, and the kind of work that has inspired me throughout my life. This is just a little bit about me, just so you know who I am, and my transgressions through science and into business. Now, throughout much of my career in academia and business, I've been molded by my desire to make new discoveries, to create resources to promote my research, and this is in the form of grants, investments, people coming in and supporting my ideas, and generally giving me resources. And of course, at the end of this, one hopes to create satisfaction through personal wealth. Along the way, I believe I've created other important things, such as new academic programs. I started a department of molecular genetics when I was at Ohio State. That was the first in the country. And then more recently, I created, or helped create, I should say, I didn't do it all by myself, a new medical school at the University of Central Florida, and that's in Orlando, Florida. So my journey begins with a deep passion for microbiology and molecular virology. I completed my PhD in molecular virology at the tender age of 26 at the University of British Columbia, followed by a short postdoctoral study at the University of Wisconsin. And at that time, I was in a cancer research lab, a very well-known cancer researcher I worked with. I then was hired as an assistant professor at Ohio State University when I was 28 years old. And so some of my graduate students were not that much younger than I was. So most people thought I was a student when I started as an assistant professor. By the time I was 35, I was a full professor. And I ran a well-funded program. You must have resources, you must have money to support research. So this early success in academia provided me a foundation upon which I could build my path to creating business enterprise, creating wealth, creating economic development. But there are two things I want to tell you about that shaped how I think about things and profoundly impacted me moving forward. First of all, when I was a young assistant professor, I started working on this class of enzymes that are shown here. They're called topoisomerases, and they're necessary for life. Now, I'm not going to present a lot of data, but what you're looking at here is an illustration of the double helix, DNA, and this little dot called topoisomerase. I'll call it Topo, like Topo Gigio, the mouse. And what it does, very simply, is it makes a break in DNA, and then it reseals that break. This is essential in order to allow the strands to, I've got one here, in order to allow the strands to separate during reading of the DNA sequence. Now, at that time, I went to the university, and I told them, you should patent this. This is really important stuff. My research, the findings, we needed intellectual property protection. Unfortunately, one of the professors on the committee I think he was in physics. He said, everybody knows there's no money in biology. So they refused it, and they released that back to me. And of course, I had to publish it, which means it went into the public domain. It was out there, and I could no longer patent this because I had to publish my work. Now, why is this important? Well, these simple little drugs, these simple little enzymes, when they bind to DNA and they make the break, sometimes you can find a drug that inserts itself in the break and makes a permanent break. One thing that's important to understand, if you damage DNA, you kill a cell, okay? So there are a whole class of drugs that are excellent anti-cancer compounds that disrupt this break and make a permanent DNA break, and you get dead cells. So this was why these drugs, why this whole project should have had multiple patents covering it, okay? Now, the fact that I could not patent this meant I probably wouldn't be able to make a business out of it, but that turns out to be wrong because you have to think about things in a new way when you're presented with challenges. Excuse me. The second transformative event that occurred to me was, that happened to me was I was put on a committee to create this incubator space. And the incubator was established more than 20 years ago, and I saw firsthand how to design a university entrepreneurial public-private relationship that could be used to promote entrepreneurs and faculty who want to start businesses. So the first thing I did was I moved into this Edison Foundation incubator and created the company. Now, I was told by several people, you can't have a company unless you have patents. You must have intellectual property. But in my case, I couldn't do that, so I used a different approach called trade secrets. Trade secrets means I have a technology that nobody can duplicate. This is exactly what Coca-Cola used. In 1915, Coca-Cola used trade secrets, and to this day, nobody knows what's in Coca-Cola, except Coca-Cola. If they had a patent on it, it would have been impossible to maintain that. Now, I'll tell you more about this, but in 2006, I moved the company to Daytona Beach, and I'll explain why. And we have an established anti-cancer R&D company, anti-cancer drug development company. And our revenue comes from product sales. We have 15 distributors globally around the world. We are a contract research organization. People pay us to do research. And we get grants. Okay? The original focus of drug discovery was done with isolated targets, and I hope this will play, but we've since improved on that by creating cells that have genes that express at different levels. These are cancer cells, and they're expressing a gene that glows green, and the intensity of that gene can be measured, and you can use that to screen for drugs that kill cancer cells. This is done inside a cell, so it's very powerful. So we've since evolved in that way. So right now, I'll just tell you, here's the key personnel for my company listed, and you'll notice I'm the founder and CEO. Jeff Spitzner, very talented young PhD student of mine, is here. He's vice president for research. And we're collaborating with Dr. Carval here from Puce, and he's Panametrics director. And this is the enterprise we're trying to build as a collaborative synergy between Ecuador and the United States. This product, which we have, which is Dr. Carval's research, is used for wound healing, fermentation, drug delivery, skincare, and biotechnology. It has many applications. Now, at this point in my life, Topogen was very successful, and I got recruited to another university in Florida to help them start this medical school. And that's when things changed in my life, because I had to relocate my lab. I moved everybody down to Orlando, Florida, and that's about the time I started getting into flying. You may have seen a picture of my airplane, me landing the airplane. And so this is kind of strange to say this, but there's a relationship between aviation and science, biological sciences, biotechnology, and it's like this. So first of all, we located a home in an area that has its own airport, and each home has its own hangar. So you land your airplane, you taxi up to your home and put your airplane in your home, and you're there. But these hangars are commercial. So and they're large, big boxes, so that's where I put my company. So this is the house I built in 2005, and this is my airplane, this is the hangar, and this is the space that I could use to house my company without a lot of expense, without a lot of overhead. Now, we realized at that time that Florida is a very, very hot place in the summer. So with additional resources, I decided to go ahead and move, not move, but to establish a second home in Colorado where the weather is more favorable. So I bought this home in Colorado, and it's in the mountains. It's actually very much like Quito, except it's very cold, but the elevation, the altitude is about the same as it is here. And this is just some pictures of the home that we purchased at that time. But I also got a couple of hangars shown here. And in the back of those hangars, I was able to place my biotechnology company. I didn't do it at the time, but I did it to plan for the future, because I thought one day I would move from Florida and go to Colorado full time, which has happened in 2015. So this is an example. There are many advantages to having hangars and biotech companies, high-tech companies located at airports in the United States. First of all, there are many airports in the United States. And second of all, you have security, you have cameras, you have the FAA. This is a perfect place for a high-tech enterprise. And so I had two hangars, so about 6,000 square feet. And hangar B was where I put the wet lab, and hangar A was for expansion and conference rooms and so forth. And here's some pictures, just the people in the lab. He's a medical doctor, a clinician I work with, and just some lab benches. And this is my chief tech. Her name is Ant, A-N-T. And we have equipment lab, conference rooms, and clean labs, clean rooms, and so forth for cell culture work. So what next? In 2016, I left Florida, and I left the university, and I went ahead and I moved full-time to Colorado, and I moved the company there as well. But what was important to me was getting resources to relocate my company into the Colorado mountains. But it takes money, and I was able to go to the state of Colorado and talk to the governor at that time, and he said, okay, we want you to come, tell us what you want. I told them what I wanted, and they gave it to me. So I was able to set up the laboratory that I just showed you in the previous slide. And this is an example of we're acting a little bit like a high-tech incubator at my company now. And we have these various companies we're working with that we're growing out to promote their growth, because when you're small, when you're a startup company, you need to partner up strategically with another company to grow. And this is Panametrics here at the top, of course. This is the collaboration with Puce and Dr. Carval. And this is a very active investigation going on now, and we're desperately trying to grow this company. But it takes time. You have to give it time. It doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't happen in 2 years. It takes a little time. Now, we're getting noticed, And I just put this up here to let you know that there have been newspaper articles written about our collaboration in Colorado, and that mention specifically this university and also Dr. Carvajal. There's a picture of him, front page of the newspaper. So what we're doing is a good thing because it engages with economic development. Everybody wants to grow. You have to have companies, you have to have high-tech businesses. So this is powerful. And even here in Quito, a few days ago, Dr. Carvajal and I were interviewed with Forbes Ecuador as a podcast. So this will be coming out, I guess, in the next couple of weeks. Now I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about biotechnology and bioengineering. And why is it a great career choice for you? I want you to consider this seriously. Biotechnology uses living cells and products from living cells to benefit mankind. And this happens in many areas, from pharmaceuticals, making drugs to treat cancer and Alzheimer's disease, which is what we do, agricultural products, crops, animal diseases, environmental products, diagnostics for biomarkers, forensic analysis, and very importantly, disease prevention. And I put this in here because in China, when you get sick, you stop paying your doctor. Why is that? Because the physician's job is to keep you from getting sick. So if you get sick, he's not doing his job, and you stop paying him. It's a different mindset than what we have here in North America. Now, as an educator and a former professor, I enjoy teaching. I have a lot of interns, students like yourselves, and high school students and college students that come into my lab and work and learn what we do. I love this part of my job. But I also like inspiring young people. So I have a quick story to tell you. Some people like flying, not everybody. But this is a ranch that I own in Texas, and I put a runway on this property because I keep a small airplane there that's kind of a toy, actually. It's just a small two-place. And I did this flight with my young nephew. He's 8 years old. His name is Liam, and he loves Batman and video games, and he's a really smart little boy. And he wanted to come up in the airplane. I said, okay. I wasn't sure what to expect, but this is what happened. I hope I can play this. I want you to look at the expression on his face as we take off in my little toy airplane, as I call it. This is Liam. We're going down the runway, and we're getting ready to take off, and he's kind of quiet right now. But watch what happens when I go wheels up. That's a happy boy. And I think he's probably going to be a pilot when he grows up. So this is something that excites me a lot. All right, I want to tell you one more story. A few years ago, my wife and I flew our airplane to Vancouver, British Columbia. This is in Canada. And this is the aircraft we used. Along the way, we got spectacular pictures, like this going through the Rocky Mountains. And this is in Vancouver. There's a thing called English Bay. It's a beautiful bay. And this was in June. The weather's perfect. And I went for a walk. And as I was walking, I ran across this guy. I think he's probably Native Indian maybe, or Eskimo derived. I'm not sure. Very nice young man. And he balances rocks for a living. This is his job. People give him tips. And this is an example of his work. I watched him balance this rock. It took 1 hour to do that. Why am I telling you this? Stay in school. Don't balance rocks for a living. Finally, consider biotech as a career enterprise. You won't be disappointed. And I want to just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. For our next presentation, please welcome Jeff Spitzner, PhD in molecular genetics with more than 20 years of experience as a founder and executive of the 9 life science, software, investment, biotechnology, and healthcare companies. He will tell us what it takes to be an entrepreneur with global reach. Welcome, Jeff.
You are right here, I think. So double click that. Hang on. Do you want
Okay.
presenter view or do you just?
Sure, presenter view is fine.
Okay, let's go to slideshow.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure to be here. So, my talk is all about what do I need to do to become a global entrepreneur? Well, being a global entrepreneur sounds very exciting, right? Who wants to be a global entrepreneur? Why do people want to become an entrepreneur? Well, you can get really rich, you can be your own boss, control how you work, you can change the world. But it's not for everybody. Being an entrepreneur it's hard work, it's risky, you could lose all your money, it can be very stressful, but there's great opportunities to be an entrepreneur. And there's really all types of entrepreneurs. The things I'm going to talk about now are how to become an entrepreneur at the local level as well as at the global level. So why am I here? I've started 10 companies, been a global entrepreneur. My 10 companies have raised over $30 million. We sold products all over the world. Currently, I'm the CEO, business founder of Panametrics, which is already global. You'll hear a lot more about that, but that's commercializing technology developed here at Puce and now being commercialized as a company in the United States. I'm also CEO of a company called DNA Nanobots, a brand new company using large folded DNA molecules to better deliver cancer drugs. And we were just a local company in the United States, but I'm here in Ecuador, so we're now a global company. So what is a global entrepreneur? Well, you're starting a growing company that does business in multiple countries. Typically, that means some kind of scalable business. So you're selling products or technologies or software, business services, things that are going to be useful all over the world. So you're going to need innovation. Innovation means something new or something better, something that people want they don't have. And if you're the entrepreneur, whether you're the leader of a global enterprise or a startup student business, you're the leader. You're responsible for the business. You're in charge of the plan. You're in charge of getting that plan completed. And all of you can do it. If it's in you, you can do it. If you're young, you can do it. If you're a woman, you can do it. If you're a minority, you can do it. If you're poor, you don't have to have an advanced degree. You don't have to have business experience. There's no restrictions. They're just obstacles. And entrepreneurs, that's what you're there for. You're there to overcome obstacles and make things happen. There's a lot of qualities that kind of resonate with most entrepreneurs. And so if you don't see some of these that look like you, it may not be the path, because entrepreneurs have to be self-confident. They have to believe that they can accomplish something even though it's risky and hard to do. They have to be innovative. They have to be willing to take some risks. They have to be ambitious and oriented toward achieving goals. You have to be a good communicator because you need people to join you and work with you. You need to be very resilient because there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road, and you have to always be learning. So to start out your business, again, whether you're going to be a global entrepreneur or starting a student business, the first thing to do is you have to identify a profitable idea, some new product, new service that somebody wants or needs enough that they're going to pay for it. This could be your own idea. You see a problem, you say, I can make that better. This would be something you've learned from your own work. It could be a growth opportunity. You could find somebody else that has a business, it's not really going anywhere. You come over and say, hey, we can innovate, we can make this better, we can grow it. It can also be commercializing new technology. There's exciting technologies being developed by researchers right here at Puce. You can work with the university and turn it into a business and launch that venture and be an entrepreneur. It's easier to grow a business in a category or market that already exists. It's more work to make something brand new. So it's best to start, if you can, something where path to markets can be a little bit easier. No matter what you're doing, you really need to understand what the market is. You need to research the current products, research current solutions, research what's coming onto the market so you don't waste your time on something that's not going to be needed. And you're always going to want to, early and often, test your concept out with people you know, customers you know. Start developing that concept for your business. Once you think you have that concept, you're going to kind of do what they call an elevator pitch. If you can't describe what you're doing for whom in 30 seconds, you need to keep working at it. So a typical elevator pitch is this format. If we help a particular kind of customer solve a specific problem with your special solution, we're better than the competition because we have this competitive advantage. So as an example, I met the other day some young researchers working on some new antibiotics that were identified initially in the skin of frogs that grow in the region. And so they might be saying, we help the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry, solve the problem of bacterial infections with our novel peptides. We're better than the current antibiotics because ours are novel and overcome antibiotic resistance. The time is now because we've now developed and patented this new technology. So you want to just be able to tell people what it is, whose problem you solve, how you're going to do it, why this is ready for business. No matter where you are, you need to start just by educating yourself. And again, this doesn't need to be for your business next week. You might want to, you might just say, well, I want to be an entrepreneur in 2 years. I want to be an entrepreneur in 20 years. It's all, you just start by learning about it. One key thing is network with professionals, build relationships, whether that's with people in person, virtual meetings, learn from other people. Do your research. Learn what's out there with markets, customers, products, trends. I encourage everybody, if you think this is of interest at all, at the right time, volunteer to work with a small company, work with a startup. And you'll know if you do it and you don't like it, then it's probably not for you. And if you can't find 10 hours a week to go spend with a startup company, you probably don't have what it takes to be your own entrepreneur. Doesn't mean you won't go work for an innovative company, but an entrepreneur always figures out how to get extra work done that's going to forward their career and their business. You also need to study entrepreneurship because there's like every field, it has a language to it. You need to be able to speak that language to get customers, to get investors. Find mentors, find people that have done this before and can help guide your journey. Then if you're working toward your company, you may want to find co-founders. Very few people know everything. So very often, if you're the person knows the technology, for example, then you might want to find someone else who's really good at the business to become a partner. But never pick a partner that you don't trust and get along with well, because many companies fail not because of the business, but because the people don't get along. Pick good partners. And as you're planning out your thing, you're going to be looking for people to join with you. You're going to look for employees or partners because you can't make a business on your own usually. Prepare yourself, particularly in the start of business finance, because business is ultimately, no matter all about the excitement of discovery, of bringing things to market, changing the world, you always have to have more money in the bank than you've spent or you have a problem. So you really need to understand finance because it's a business. So as you move through this journey, start to write your business plan and start to prepare yourself, because this is going to change your life. It's going to change your family's life. You have to be prepared for those kinds of changes. And don't give up your day job until it's really time to jump in to that entrepreneurship. Next step, if you're planning out a business, well, really validate the opportunity. Sometimes people think, well, I'm going to solve this great problem, and they spend years and years and millions of dollars only to find out that lots of people think it's a nice idea, but no one wants to write you checks for it. Really, no matter what you do, if you want to sell cupcakes, if you want to build better rockets to get us faster to Mars, whatever it is, make sure you understand who the buyer is, how they buy, why they buy, And if you don't, because if you don't do that, you're not going to have a successful business. So, for example, I talked earlier about this new potential antibiotic. So, who buys an antibiotic? I mean, the sick person maybe eventually buys it, but you only get to buy it if it's there at a hospital or a pharmacy. So, and a hospital is not a buyer. A hospital is a thing, it's not a person. People buy things, companies don't. So you have to understand, what's going to take for a doctor to want to prescribe it. What's going to take for the hospital to realize that they can make more money selling your antibiotic rather than the current antibiotic. What's going to help them understand what the risks and benefits are? Or, is it going to help keep recurring infections outside the hospital to save them money? So talk to customers. Make sure that what you want to do is something they're willing to pay money to have. Make sure the market is big enough to justify all the effort you take. As you do this, you're continually thinking through and refining your business model and your plan. Make sure you understand, what's it going to cost to make my business? What's it going to cost to make my product? Am I going to make enough money selling my product to justify those investments? Because at the end, you have to make money, your investors have to make money. So preparing for launch, well, depends on the industry you're in. So if you're doing new biotechnology, you're going to need some patents. Otherwise, anyone else could steal your work. If you're doing a new drug, you're going to need clinical approvals and regulatory approvals and clinical trials. You might have a grand vision for the big product you want to make. Aim for what we call the MVP, minimal viable product. So the smallest, simplest version of your product that you can make that's good enough that people will buy it, because you want to get in the marketplace, generating money, having conversations with your customers. And then you have to start thinking through, well, what kinds of facilities do I need? Do I need to buy equipment? Do I need to have a cost for manufacturing? Whether I'm making rockets or cupcakes, I need supplies, I need equipment. How will I find my customers? That's my sales strategy. How will my customers find me? That's our marketing strategy. What else will you need to grow your business? How much money will you need to grow it? Where will you get it? So the business plan is always the same, whether you're doing a student startup business or a global business. You need to understand, who's your market, how big is that market, what's the problem you're solving, what's the opportunity to solve that problem. Are you trying to solve a problem that only 10 people in the world have, or you trying to solve a problem that 1 million people have and they really are desperate to solve that problem? What is your solution? Tell us about your new product in your business plan. What is your product? What's special about it? Some technical details, some special sauce details, get somebody excited. And then business model. How do you make money? Is it something you sell cupcakes one at a time for $1? Is it enterprise software that companies pay $100,000 a year to have your software? So you have to understand your business model, and then your value proposition. It's simply, what are the key reasons why somebody wants to buy your product? How are you going to sell it? How are you going to get the marketing out there? How are you going to reach your customers so they know what product to buy? And then your company traction, your evidence. So if you're trying to tell investors why they should give you money to grow your business, you're going to have to tell them, company traction means, how many customers do you have right now? Who's on your advisory board? How much of investment have you raised? Have you gotten your patent? Did you publish a paper? So just all your evidence for why you're not just an idea, you're a real business. That's your traction. Then your team is very important. Talk about you and your own passion and ambition and credentials, the credentials and past experience of your team members. It often helps to bring on experienced advisors, people that may not be employees of the company, but you give them some stock or some upside in your company, because then you get some special important people who they maybe don't know you, but they know of those people. So if the investors think, well, if those people are involved, it's probably a good opportunity. And then financial projections. You're going to lay out year by year, how much money are you going to make each year, and how much is it going to cost you to make that money. And then, again, if you're raising money, you're going to have to tell investors, well, how much money do you need, and how are you going to use that money to grow the business and create value? And then finally, what's your exit strategy? So if you have a business where investors come in, let's say an investor gives you $100,000 to buy 10% of your business. Well, that investor wants to know, in 5 years, are you going to sell that company for $50 million, and now they get $5 million back for their $100,000 investment? Everybody's happy. If you just sit on that company forever, they never get their money back, and so they're not going to invest in you. So we've made it this far. We have our business plan. We thought it all out. We're excited. We're ready to go into business. So you create a business. You have to incorporate a business. Make sure you, no matter whether it's a big global business or just a student project, get everything in writing. All your agreements, your founders, your employees, get everything in writing. If you're going to have equity. So equity is the ownership in the company. So there's 100%. If you have 2 founders, maybe you each start out with 50%. But you don't want to give them all the 50% right away, because maybe after a year, one of the founders goes away. So you often do what we call vesting plans. So you may say, well, you get 50% of the company, but you have to work there for 3 years successfully before you've earned it all. So this encourages, incentivizes people to stay with the company. Likewise, if you're a startup company, you're bringing on new employees or new contractors, you don't have a lot of money, but you're giving them equity, a portion of ownership in the company in exchange for them working. And hopefully, if they believe in the business, hopefully, well, maybe they got a lower salary, but their equity will become worth a lot. Back when Facebook was starting up, they didn't have much money, but they had lots of stock. They gave a little bit of stock to the guy who painted the mural on their garage door. Later, the equity that person who painted the garage door was worth $20 million. So equity can be very valuable. So we have our business launch. We have everything in writing, everything planned out. We're kind of getting the business all prepared, getting your tools in place. So you need software for managing your customers, managing your money. You need websites. You need email, social media. You have your whole development plan to go make and sell your product. Now you figure out, well, how do we make it? Maybe it's something, very, very often you start out by a product that you make in your own basement. So if it's software, literally you and your colleagues are sitting in your basements, your living rooms, writing some software, sweat equity. Or maybe you've been able to save up a little money to go use that money to pay some contractors to make the software for you or to make your cupcakes. Eventually, you'll probably need additional resources. If it's very scientific, you might be able to go after research grants. They can be very important, but they take a while to, you write a grant and you wait 6 months to find out if you get the money. So very often, young entrepreneurs are turning to friends and family for the first bits of investment, taking on loans. As you get more experience, you can go after what they call angel investors. So those are rich individuals who can write you a check because they believe in the business, they believe they'll get a return. And when you get really going, you've got your business going, you're making $2 million in a year, now you can go to venture capital. They're the professional investors, they're the professional investment organizations who can write those $5 million checks so you can really grow your business, expand it. And so once you have that all planned out, now you start selling your product. Now you're growing your business. So key thing is be a great partner, be a great leader, be kind to everyone, listen to everyone. Think about and while you're doing this, think about how you scale your business. So you're going to need more customers. You need bigger customers. You're going to expand your sales into new territories, into new countries. You're going to add new products. You're going to add new features to your products. So you're going to have a good roadmap for expanding your products. You're going to have to understand how to optimize your business models, your hiring plans. You don't want to go get a bunch of orders and not have the people ready to go make the product. Manage your cash, have a good expansion plan. The mindset of an entrepreneur is failure is not an option. But it's important to realize that failure is common. Most startup companies, despite your best efforts, can fail because of market conditions or supply chain issues or things happen. Be prepared that failure is a learning experience. Failure, the best baseball players in the world still are out most of the time. That's okay. They're still the best. You plan on success, but if you fail, you learn from it, you get back up, you do it again. Through this, just be strong, keep learning, give back as a mentor. Achieve your goals for being an entrepreneur. my own journey. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I started out in academics, started a couple companies out of my own research. So when I was doing my research with Dr. Mark Muller here, I commercialized the software that we had developed because I thought if it's useful for me, maybe useful for other people, and we commercialized our own reagents. I went to MIT, did my postdoc work, and then decided, hey, if I'm actually going to change the world, I'm going to move over, start companies to bring these products to market. So took the software that we had developed and focused on selling product, and we ended up selling the company, making money, and turning into more companies. So then I worked with my colleague here, Dr. Adam McHale, on a couple other software companies. We sold software all over the world. After a few years working with an investment company, I changed my strategy. Rather than commercializing as a business as my own ideas, I instead tried to find the best ideas in the world and the best people in the world and form new businesses. So my new projects, again, DNA nanobots was developed at The Ohio State University using large folded DNA molecules as the vehicles for targeted drug delivery. Very exciting stuff. And most notably, Panamatrix here, you'll hear all about that. I was introduced through a common colleague to Dr. Carvajal here, who's Professor Puce. I really liked the technology, and as I explored the market opportunities, I picked out where I thought was a good path to market. I was connected, of course, to the university, to Puce, and we agreed on a good partnership strategy. And so we're active partners with the university. The university is a part owner of the company. So when we succeed, the university succeeds. And as part of that licensing and partnership, we're growing these things together. So becoming a global entrepreneur is within reach. You might not start out as students as global entrepreneurs, but you can be entrepreneurs. You can start up student businesses. It's a great learning experience, even if it's not what you want to do forever. But you can do it. Just research it, do it. Also, we know Puce is a strong partner for entrepreneurial education and preparation, and it's a great partner to help bring technologies to market. So Dr. Carvajal, who you're here from, he runs the bioengineering innovation program. It's all geared up to helping students learn about entrepreneurship and innovation in bioengineering, a great program here at the university. We're excited to continue here being long-term partners with Puce to help prepare students to be entrepreneurs, to help identify technologies and get them ready for commercialization. And so we're here, let's create some brand new companies, let's create thousands of great new jobs in Ecuador. All of you are going to be part of that. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, welcome Adel Mikhail, a doctor and an entrepreneur with an outstanding career in bioengineering startups, including founding and managing bioinformatics, bioengineering, biobanking, diagnostic, and medical device companies. He will talk to us about the future of bioengineering.
Good morning. Let me ask you guys, how many people here are in high school still? How many people in high school? How many people are at the college here? How many people are taking a science course? Anybody taking science? Anybody taking biology? Anybody like biology? Not so much. I hated biology. I hated biology, and now I'm a biologist. I spent my whole career in biology. But when I was in high school, I really hated it. How many people want to go into sciences when they go to college? Anybody interested in science in college? Anybody interested in business in college? Engineering? Math? How many people want to go to college? How many people are being forced by their parents to go to college? So I'm going to be talking, my task was to talk to you guys about the frontiers of biotechnology. And what do you think the biggest problems in medicine and biology today are? Is it cancer? How many people have cancer, know somebody that has cancer? You have a family member that's had cancer? How many people have had a family member that has Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's disease. How many people have family that have diabetes? Diabetes. Do you think most of these things will be cured in your lifetime? Do you think that cancer is going to be cured? You don't think so? Do you think Alzheimer's will be cured? No. It's a tough one. What do you think the final frontier, not the frontiers of biotechnology, but what do you think the final frontier of medicine and biology would be? It might be aging. How many people want to live 5 extra years? How many people want to live to 90 years old? How about 95? How about 100? How many people want to live to be 120? If you're healthy, would you want to live to be 120? Does anybody here want to live forever? Nobody wants to live forever. Does anybody want to live to be 150? No. Nobody wants to live to be 150. Do you think that there's a life form on Earth that is actually immortal? Do you think there's a biological species on Earth that actually lives forever? It's hard to predict, right? Do you think some species live hundreds of years? Some species live hundreds of years. Do you think some species live for thousands of years? Some, possibly. So today I'm going to talk to you about the possibility of extending life, how science could actually extend life. Not only extend life, but extend health. So the concept here is not just to live as a 100-year-old with all the frailties and all the disease, but to live to a longer life with all the health benefits of a younger person. So if we can convince you that you can live longer, more healthy, would you do something about it today to live that, to live to 100? Or would you still not pay attention to your health, or maybe smoke or drink or not eat well? Do you think if I can convince you you could live an extra 10 years, you would actually start today living more healthy? Possibly. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit, it's going to get a little sciencey, but I'm going to talk about how science today has identified ways to extend your longevity. How do we do this? So the main risk factors for disease are usually the things that you see on the left. Could I have the pointer maybe? Yep. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Is that a pointer? Laser? So here are the risk factors for your health. If you are looking for factors that actually affect cancer, the number one factor that affects cancer is smoking. If you smoke, the highest incidence, is this a better one? It's not very bright. There was a green one earlier. So cancer is a major problem in the world, as you know, and it's hard to treat, but it's easy to prevent. And some of the main risk factors for cancer, the number one is smoking, number two is diet. And then you can see all the different other behaviors that we do in our life that actually affect our risk for cancer. But if you include aging in the risk factors, it is the primary risk factor for getting cancer. Very few young people get cancer. When you get to be older than 60, then the incidence of cancer is dramatically greater. Aging is a $6 trillion problem in the world. $6 trillion problem. So there's a major interest in just extending aging in a way that keeps people healthy, not just keeps them from dying. Aging is very complicated. We're not going to be talking about that. We're only talking about a few models of aging here. Some of it is going to be the genetic model, the telomere shortening models. You guys know about DNA, enough DNA, RNA? You know about cells? Yes? Okay. So we're going to be talking about some of these components of aging that we can do something about today and what scientists have done over the past few years to actually change the longevity of different animals. There's a lot of, as biologists, we look for models of aging. Every gene that we have that keeps us healthy can go wrong and actually create a problem. And aging is not excluded from that. This is a 13-year-old girl. She prematurely ages. She died just last year. She has 3 million followers on Instagram. She has a disease called progeria and accelerates aging very, very quickly. And all aspects of aging, including heart disease, diabetes, skin, hair. So when we take models of aging, we can try to understand what happens and maybe extend it to the normal aging process to see if we can alter it or modify disease or modify longevity. She is born with short telomeres. Those are the caps at the end of the chromosomes that stabilize the chromosomes. As cells divide, the telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter, and you age over the course of time. Telomeres probably last about 50 cell divisions. So if you have short telomeres, you're aging much faster than the normal population. I don't know if you can see this slide, but here's a slide of different animals and how long they live. You can see their turtles will live hundreds of years, elephants live a long time, certain sharks live hundreds of years, sponge will live 4,000 years. 4,000 years for a sponge. And the one organism is thought to be immortal, and that's the jellyfish. When the jellyfish gets sick or grows old, it actually just becomes a baby again, becomes a polyp again, goes to the bottom of the seafloor, and then constantly turns over from adult to polyp, and is thought to live forever. It's the same organism, same DNA, lives in perpetuity. So how does that biology, these organisms all have the same stuff that we do. They all have DNA, they all have RNA. How does biology from these animals actually affect humans? Is there something we could learn? Here's the curious case of the jellyfish. It effectively just becomes a polyp again, buds to the bottom of the ocean, becomes undifferentiated. When you're an embryo, your cells are not defined who they are. They're undifferentiated. That means they don't know if they're a liver cell or a brain cell, and they become embryonic. So it has the capacity, when it's growing old, to trigger a pattern of gene expression that makes it a baby again, goes to the bottom of the seafloor, and with the conditions right, will then become an adult. I'm going to talk a little bit about what causes aging in the epigenome. Do you guys know what the epigenome is? You know what the genome is, right? The sequence on the DNA. Anything that affects the sequence on the DNA outside it, chemicals that modify those sequences, usually called methyl groups, is known as the epigenome. The epigenome is responsible to tell you what cell is what, where. So it tells you whether it's a brain cell or a skin cell or a liver cell. It's these molecules that modify the DNA will define the cell type. And so it's a very important aspect of genetics, and it's fairly new, because over the past 50 years, we've pretty much thought that most of genetics happened just by the sequence of the DNA. In fact, most functional biology, most differentiation, most embryology happens above the genome, based on the modification of the DNA. Dr. Muller is an expert in epigenetics. So we're going to be talking about some of these damages that happen to the DNA starting through the mitochondria. You guys know what the mitochondria is? We always say it's the powerhouse of the cell, right? Did you know that mitochondria creates energy, right? It creates ATP. Did you know the mitochondria also has melatonin? You know what melatonin is? Melatonin is a hormone that's produced by the pineal gland and makes you go to sleep, right? But did you know that 90% of the melatonin in the body is produced by the mitochondria? Has nothing to do with sleep. Do you know what that mitochondria does? Do you know what that melatonin does in the mitochondria? It's an antioxidant. 90% of the melatonin in the body is produced in the mitochondria. It has nothing to do with sleep. When you produce ATP, you produce some toxic molecules called reactive oxygen species. And that is neutralized by the strongest antioxidant in the mitochondria, known as melatonin. If you didn't have it, your mitochondria would degrade. You would get inflammation. You get inflammation, you get a higher chance of cancer. Do you know how to increase that melatonin? It's really interesting. It's sunlight, but it's a different kind of sunlight. When you go outside and in the sun and you get melatonin that helps you, the circadian rhythm helps you go to sleep at night, keeps you awake, and you get it at night and you'll go to sleep. In the mornings, you go out, and if you get sunlight in the mornings and the evenings, you get near infrared. You don't get the ultraviolet. You don't get the visible light. The near infrared light actually activates melatonin in the mitochondria, produces the melatonin in the mitochondria for neutralizing the oxidative stress molecules that are being produced. So when you have mitochondria that's affected by increased reactive oxygen species, you often get DNA damage. DNA damage leads to a whole bunch of different things, and it leads to epigenetic changes. It could lead to mutations. It could lead to shorter telomeres. It could lead to aging. So that is kind of where the concept of aging seems to start. So I'm going to talk about a paper published a few years ago by a Harvard scientist who claims that he reversed aging. He reversed aging. So if you can reverse aging, you can regenerate tissue. If I can convince you that I could regenerate a blind mouse and make him see again, that would be a pretty compelling piece of work. If I can convince you that we can change somebody with glaucoma or somebody that doesn't hear and make them hear again, that would be very interesting. So his name is David Sinclair, and he studied the epigenetics of aging. And so the model was, he took a previous work by a Nobel laureate. He took 4 different molecules. And this was a Nobel laureate who won, Dr. Yamanaka, who took 4 different molecules. And with those 4 different molecules, these are transcription factors, he was able to take a skin cell and make it pluripotent, makes it a stem cell. So he took a differentiated cell, he treated it with these 4 different transcription factors, and he made it into a pluripotent stem cell, which means that pluripotent stem cell can become anything else. It could become a brain cell, it can become a blood cell, whatever you want. That's pretty remarkable. It means he brought an adult back to an embryo in terms of a cellular form. So the guy at Harvard took 3 of those factors. He took all 3 factors, is OSK. He left one out. He left the one that's MYC. It's called MYC, which is an oncogene. Because if you keep the oncogene in there, it actually created a tumor. Because an embryonic cell is very similar to a tumor cell. If you think about it, an embryonic cell doesn't know where it is in the tissue. It wants to move. It wants to become something else. So embryonic cells and tumor cells are similar in many ways. And in fact, when you get an undifferentiated tumor, your chance of survival is much less. So he took this optic nerve. He took a mouse, and the optic nerve is the one that goes from the eye back to the brain, and he crushed it. Crushed the nerve. This is the area of the crush. Crush. This is where he crushed it. And he had a genetic way of being able to turn on those three factors. Those three factors. It's called them OSK. And then when the factor is off, you can see that no nerves grew back in the optic nerve. When he turned the nerve on, you can see those bright spots. The nerves actually grew back through the crush, through the damaged optic nerve. And he can do it in a young mouse. The question is, could he reverse it in an old mouse? A mouse that's 12 months old is an old mouse, older mouse. It would be middle age or older. So he did the same study in an older mouse, and he crushed it again. This is with these transcription factors off, and here's the transcription factors on. You see the nerves actually grew back through the crush, and the mouse was able to see. So he restored sight in a mouse model of blindness. Also did it in a mouse model of glaucoma. So, and the most interesting thing is that these cells actually found the right pattern back to where they needed to be. Because you can imagine if the cells would cross each other, you may not be able to see the same way. The cells actually went through it. So when he evaluated the genetics and the epigenetics, he concluded that these three markers actually restored the epigenetic profile of the mouse. Remember, the epigenetics are the modifications of the DNA that control when genes are expressed and when they're not. And this is a seminal paper in aging. So now I'm going to talk about some things that we can do to control that epigenetics of aging in our current life. So it turns out that when we live in an abundant way, we age worse. We age worse. I'm going to give you one example. You can take animals and have them undergo caloric restriction. It means reduce their calories by 30%, and they will increase their lifespan by about 30%. If you decrease your calories by 30%, you could increase your life, if you're a mouse, and lower animals. It doesn't happen to that extreme in adults, by almost 30%. That caloric restriction is thought to keep your epigenome healthy. Keep it healthy. Why? Because if you are constantly eating, you're constantly growing. If you're constantly growing, your energy doesn't go, conceptually speaking, in maintenance and repair of the tissue. And when you look at the genes that are expressed by caloric restrictions, they are the longevity genes. And some of the longevity genes are called sirtuins. And these sirtuins, discovered by the fellow at Harvard, are the same molecules you get from red wine. So you can see this is a very basic science guy. And what he did is he discovered a process, and he had a model, and he tested it, and he discovered a host of proteins called the sirtuins. And he learned that if he took red wine extract, called resveratrol, it could increase the sirtuins. He sold his company for $1 billion. Never made a penny. He sold his company for $1 billion. And this is the mechanism of the caloric restriction, and resveratrol from the red wine are the same. So now where does the resveratrol come from? Well, the way he studied it was the French. The French eat very heavy food, very fatty food. And they also drink red wine. But they were never getting chronic diseases. They had something called the French paradox. They ate very poorly, but never got cardiovascular disease as we did in the US. And they defined that as a French paradox, and they thought it was attributed to the red wine resveratrol. And resveratrol was a product of a fungus that was growing on the grapes that were making the red wine. When they treated the grapes with a fungicide and got rid of the fungus, the health benefits of red wine diminished. So this is an example of how you can affect, I'm not telling everybody to drink red wine, but this is how you can affect your actual longevity by exercising some of these habits. Here's the actual example in primates. These monkeys are actually the same age. They're 28 years old. One monkey has a 30% decrease in food. A 30% decrease in food, and one monkey ate whatever he wanted. You can see that the aging difference just by difference in food intake. So is it the difference in food intake, or could it be the way we eat? Is it what we eat, the way we eat, or the timing of we eat? So a study at the NIH took 10,000 mice and gave them different diets, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, every combination. People say it's a carbohydrate that makes you fat. And over the course of many years, they found it didn't matter what they ate or even how much they ate. It mattered when they ate. So if the animal actually ate once a day for a few minutes that day, which they ate a lot, it increased their lifespan by almost 30%. So that's the concept of intermittent fasting. And that concept of fasting has been around for generations. Every religion that I know has a concept of fasting. I think most everybody's Catholic here. We're going to be fasting pretty soon. And it's interesting that it's not only in science now, but also has gone through our cultures and our religions. I'm going to skip this, but so how do we, again, keep the epigenome healthy? How do we age more gently? How do we live a little bit longer? So I told you about some of the caloric restriction. I told you a little bit about some of the things we can do in terms of eating. Now there's a concept called hormesis. Hormesis is a concept where if something doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. If something doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Our genome was not intended to live a cushy lifestyle. Our genome was intended to be challenged, pushed. And when you challenge and push our genome, it stays a little bit healthier. Because if you realize, as a society, we have been kind of developing a much more affluent, we were supposed to be out in the field, we were supposed to be getting more exercise, we ate a little bit more naturally, we don't eat all the foods we get from the supermarket. We don't eat hot dogs and hamburgers like we did. So the concept is, if you stress out your genome, it will respond to keep your epigenetics and longevity genes at a healthier state. And here are the things that are most surprising to me. Exercise was not surprising. If you exercise, it actually puts your body in a state of stress, and that state of stress, the compensation for it, is a healthier epigenome. This was surprising to me. Hot tubs, saunas, cold showers, plunges, cold plunges. You probably don't do it in Ecuador, but in Finland, they would go from a sauna and then they would jump into the ice. And I thought that was crazy. But if you actually look at the people and look at their genome and their methylation pattern, as they do that on a regular basis, it actually keeps your longevity biology more healthy. And then there's a concept of xenohormesis. That means if the plant is stressed and we eat the plant, it may actually improve our methylation age, our epigenomic age. So just like the fungus on the grape, if you eat stressed plants, you actually look at what the animal's methylation pattern is, it's actually healthier than if you eat that perfect apple. So when the Harvard scientists will actually tell you what they eat on a regular basis, they go for the more stressed out plants. If you look at a plant, if you give the plant a lot of fertilizer, I do some gardening. If you give the plant a lot of fertilizer, what do? It just grows green leaves. It doesn't grow fruit. If you want to actually get fruit, you stress the plant more. So eat plants that are a little bit more stressed, and there's a lot of biology behind it and data. The next one is intermittent fasting. We just talked about that. And the other two are mental activities and a purposeful life. I'm going to tell you about the purposeful life. Big study, Alzheimer's disease. 20,000 nuns and priests, 20 years. They took them before they had Alzheimer's, and they followed them all the way to death. All the way to death. And during the collection of the data, they asked them questions about their eating habits, about their exercise habits, about their sense of hope, about their sense of purpose in life, whether they felt they had a meaning in life. And they followed them all the way to taking out the brain, and they looked at the brain to see if they had Alzheimer's. And the nuns and priests that had reported that they lived a purposeful and meaning life, even the pathology, even when the brain said you should have Alzheimer's, they did not exhibit symptoms. That is a pretty remarkable thing. So the brain said you should have Alzheimer's, but if they lived a purposeful and meaningful life, the disease didn't manifest, clinically speaking. Remarkable. And then the other one I'm going to talk to you about is hope. Well, this is what excites me in biology. I'm not so much excited about the molecules. These guys love molecules. I'm more excited about the things that impact our life. So this lady won the Nobel Prize, Blackburn. She won the Nobel Prize for the biology of the telomeres, those caps on the chromosomes that stabilize the chromosome. And I said the shorter the telomere, the older you are, and you have about 50, 60 cell divisions, and those telomeres get shorter and shorter, and you age and age. So she wanted to understand if your mind, if what you thought actually changed the telomeres. So she took moms of terminally ill children, kids that were dying. Very stressful. You can't imagine anything more stressful. The moms that were taking care of terminally ill children. And she asked them, what was your sense of hope? Do you believe that your child will live? Do you believe that this will be okay? And she then took blood cells or buccal swabs, cheek cells, and looked for telomerase activities, an enzyme that kept the telomeres long. And the moms that had hope the most had the longest telomeres. The moms that had the hope the most were aging less and getting sick less than the moms that had the least amount of hope. I'm getting the time. So that is the end before I get Javier out here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. To close this space of inspirational science and entrepreneurship, we call on this stage Javier Carvajal, Doctor in Food Science and Technology, Ecuadorian researcher and professor at the Puce, dedicated to innovation through nanobiotechnology, microbiology, and bioengineering with the theme Science Made in Ecuador.
Hola, yo soy Javier Carvajal, soy el creador. Hola, yo soy Javier Carvajal, soy el creador del proyecto Quito 1566, que es la recreación de la primera cerveza que haya sido hecha alguna vez en el continente americano. El hallazgo de esta levadura responde a una tecnología que se desarrolló en la Universidad Católica y que se encarga de la reanimación de microorganismos que se encontraban en un estado de dormancia, es como una latencia por cientos de años, en los fermentadores de roble que trajo Fray Jodoco en el año 1566 de Quito. La cerveza es única porque es la fusión de dos culturas, la cultura indígena y la cultura europea. Se utilizan granos como la cebada y el trigo europeo y el maíz, que es el grano local. Además, y muy importante, la cepa de levadura es local, es una cepa de levadura del clado, es decir, del grupo de esta especie Saccharomyces cerevisiae que corresponde a un linaje ecuatoriano. Eso ha sido demostrado por secuenciación de genes y por técnicas muy modernas. Así que es una levadura emparentada con las levaduras que fermentan la chicha. Para degustar Quito 1566 necesitamos utilizar los 6 sentidos del catador. Primero, el oído. Cuando destapamos una cerveza tenemos que oír ese pss del gas que se escapa desde la lata, ¿no? Si es que es muy fuerte, está tibia; si es que está muy ligero, quiere decir que está bien fría. En segundo lugar, viene la vista. Tenemos que ver el color, la espuma y todas las tonalidades que tiene la cerveza. En tercer lugar está el sabor, que lo percibimos con las papilas gustativas de nuestra lengua, pero que se combina con el cuarto sentido, que es el olfato. El olfato junto con el sabor nos da una redondez del sabor. Y al mismo tiempo, nuestra lengua percibe esa textura de la cerveza, lo cual es el tacto. Nos dice que es una cerveza de alto cuerpo, mediano cuerpo o cuerpo ligero. Y el sexto sentido del catador es el que relaciona todas las sensaciones que tenemos con el momento presente. Nosotros estamos bebiéndonos la historia en el presente con una explosión de sabor en nuestras bocas. Prueba Quito 1566.
Todos. Ok. El Ecuador es un país con altísima biodiversidad y esa es nuestra mayor riqueza. No está en el petróleo, no está en los camarones ni en el banano, está en la biodiversidad. ¿Sabían ustedes que en 1 kilómetro cuadrado del Parque Nacional Yasuní podemos encontrar más árboles, más especies de plantas que en toda Norteamérica? Nuestra biodiversidad encierra los secretos y las respuestas para los problemas actuales y del futuro. Pero ustedes quizás no habrán oído nunca que la conservación de nuestros ecosistemas, de nuestros bosques, de nuestras especies, está rindiendo frutos, está rindiendo dinero, ¿no? Se conserva por el valor que tiene, el valor intrínseco que tiene, pero todavía no hemos dado el salto hacia aprovechar los recursos, las moléculas, los materiales contenidos en esas especies. Bien, yo les voy a hablar de esa inspiración que sale a partir de la naturaleza para llegar a la innovación tecnológica. La naturaleza es nuestra maestra. La naturaleza nos enseña cómo, la naturaleza nos enseña cómo resolver los problemas y si nos inspiramos en ella, podemos encontrar la fuente de muchas soluciones. Pero se necesita tecnología, porque los secretos que tienen los organismos vivos están muy bien guardados. La llave para abrir eso es la ciencia. Pero para ser científico, no solamente se necesita estudiar mucho y tener, digamos, pasión por entender las cosas. Se necesita un ojo muy aguzado, tener mucha curiosidad y llegar a estar en una especie de estado especial de la mente y del espíritu. Ese que les permita a ustedes innovar, el que les permita a ustedes encontrar las soluciones que están en la naturaleza. Entonces, solamente de esa manera podemos llegar a la innovación tecnológica y podemos cambiar el esquema económico que tiene nuestro país. En nuestra universidad se fundó van a ser 2 años, por primera vez la carrera de bioingeniería. Esa es la única bioingeniería que hay en el país. Está fundamentada en 3 pilares básicos. La ciencia, donde ustedes estudian la matemática, la física, la química, la biología. Luego se hace una transición hacia la ingeniería, donde aprenden los procesos industriales, ingenierías químicas, ingeniería biotecnológica y finalmente, y no menos importante, la parte empresarial. Es decir, esos son los 3 pilares de la bioingeniería. ¿Y por qué la parte empresarial? Precisamente porque a partir de nuestra biodiversidad nosotros podemos desarrollar productos y soluciones que ayuden a resolver problemas reales de la sociedad, no problemas imaginarios, reales. Y así como Mark aterriza perfectamente en su avioneta, también nosotros tenemos que aprender a aterrizar perfectamente en la sociedad y en sus problemas para saber resolverlos. Entonces, tenemos posibles soluciones en el área de biomédica, soluciones en el área de ciencias de materiales, cómo transformar la biomasa en plásticos renovables, reciclables, etc. Todo eso está inmerso en la carrera de bioingeniería y es lo que ustedes, si deciden seguirla aquí en la Pontificia Universidad Católica del Ecuador, porque no hay en ningún otro lado donde más hacer eso, pues van a aprender y posiblemente serán los futuros empresarios tecnológicos de este país. Ahora me quiero mover un poco más hacia esa parte que les decía, cómo es que un investigador llega a develar los secretos de la naturaleza. Les traje un par de ejemplos. Todos conocemos a este señor. ¿Quién no le ha visto a él? ¿Quién puede dar su nombre? Albert Einstein, perfectamente. Él dijo algo que revolucionó en su tiempo, a los principios del siglo XX, revolucionó todo. Él generó la teoría de la relatividad general. ¿Alguien me puede decir qué es la gravedad? ¿Qué es la gravedad? ¿Alguien dice? A ver, no importa, no importa. Alguien que pueda decirme qué es la gravedad. A ver, sí. ¿Perdón? Ok, esa es la física clásica, una fuerza que atrae los cuerpos. Pero lo que nos dijo Albert Einstein es que la gravedad en realidad es ese par espacio-tiempo que se hunde cuando existe masa. Y parece tan raro eso, ¿no? ¿Cómo es que el espacio-tiempo se deforma cuando existe masa? Y ahí está, esa red que está ahí es la que representa el espacio-tiempo y el planeta que se hunde. Es por eso, porque la gravedad resulta ser en la deformación del espacio-tiempo. ¿Y qué trascendencia tiene esto? ¿Saben para qué ha servido eso? Solamente revolucionó las ideas. Se usa para el GPS. Eso se utiliza para el GPS. Sin eso no habría sido posible desarrollar GPS y tampoco habría sido una gran industria y no habría producido tanto dinero. Otro ejemplo que les traje el día de hoy es el de Rosalind Franklin. Esta mujer en el año 1953 tomó la primera fotografía de una molécula de ADN. Pero ¿y ella cómo sabía que era eso importante? Bien, vean ustedes, eso es una difracción de rayos X. Lo que se ve a la izquierda es la fotografía de la doble hélice del ADN. Su trabajo fue fundamental para la descripción posterior de esta molécula por Watson y Crick. ¿Y para qué sirve eso ahora? Para todo. Todo en biotecnología tiene que ver con ADN. Todo lo que es investigación del cáncer, todo lo que es investigación de nuevos productos tiene que ver con ADN. Y eso gracias a Rosalind Franklin. Entonces, una persona que ahora nos puede inspirar para desarrollar futuros negocios de emprendimiento tecnológico es esta, para las mujeres y para los hombres. Y aquí tenemos, esta es la famosísima molécula de ADN, fíjense. Si nosotros pensamos en la forma que tiene el ADN, ¿sabes cuál es la forma del ADN? Una doble hélice, ¿verdad? La doble hélice del ADN es la forma perfecta, ideal, que evolucionó hace varios billones de años, 2 billones de años al menos, para almacenar información. Almacenar información es lo que le permite tener esa forma, o mejor dicho, esa forma le permite almacenar información. Y es tan perfecta y es tan compacta que se puede en la actualidad a través de la biomimética, es decir, eso que nos enseña a solucionar problemas inspirándonos en la naturaleza. Les digo, a través de la biomimética podemos grabar videos, audio, textos, toda la información, codificarla en ADN. Se dice que todo lo que se conoce, todo lo que se ha desarrollado desde las cavernas hasta la actualidad, cabe en 2 baldes de ADN, toda esa información. Fíjense ustedes, qué poderoso. Quienes desarrollen algo como esto y comercialicen, harán muchos millones. Bien. Y todo esto tiene que ver con el desarrollo de empresas de base tecnológica en el Ecuador. Todo el mundo sabe que el Ecuador es un país exportador de petróleo, ¿verdad? Que es el primer producto, ¿no es cierto?, de exportación, de eso vivimos. También del banano, de los camarones, de las flores, pero todo eso va a una capa que se llama macroeconomía. Después de eso hay un gran vacío en nuestra economía y al final está la microeconomía, ¿no? O sea, las tienditas, quienes venden chicles, etcétera. Es decir, hay una gran oportunidad en esa franja media para desarrollar empresas de base tecnológica que puedan aportar soluciones reales y que puedan hacer riqueza. Muchas gracias. Pero para eso, y aquí viene la parte como más inspiradora, se necesita lo que se conoce como la triple hélice, que no tiene nada que ver con el ADN, ¿no? La triple hélice está conformada por la academia, o sea, la universidad, el sector privado, los negocios y el Estado. Para que se puedan desarrollar empresas de base tecnológica, tienen que interactuar estas 3 hélices y sin eso no se puede. En Ecuador tenemos academia, está demostrado, esta es una universidad que genera increíble cantidad de investigación y de datos, pero nuestro sector privado tiene un enfoque demasiado puntual y de corto plazo. Y nuestro Estado, lamentablemente, ha estado en el último tiempo ausente en términos de emprendimiento tecnológico. ¿Cómo resolver eso? ¿Cómo resolver? ¿Cómo le damos las 2 hélices que le faltan a nuestros emprendimientos? Bueno, creo que ustedes ya tienen la respuesta, ¿no? Han escuchado a 3 personas del sector privado que tienen conexión con el Estado. Pero no me refiero al Estado del Ecuador, me refiero, en este caso, por ejemplo, al Estado de Colorado, en Estados Unidos, que da fondos para que nuestra investigación salga adelante. ¿Cuál es el beneficio para el país? El conocimiento que sale de esta universidad en forma de patentes ha sido licenciado para que pueda producirse eso en un gran mercado y que esos recursos regresen para generar becas para nuestros futuros y actuales estudiantes. Nuevo modelo, completamente nuevo, que nos permite lanzar propuestas globales desde el Ecuador. Y este es el primer modelo que se está desarrollando en la Puce y solamente en la Puce, en el cual se pueden incluir otros futuros negocios de base tecnológica. Vean ustedes entonces, todo comienza en pequeño. La Coca-Cola comenzó pequeña, todos empezaron pequeños, todos fueron lo que se conoce en el mundo de los negocios como una startup, pero eso crece en el futuro. Y bien, la belleza que nos revela la naturaleza, si es que tenemos la paciencia y el amor por observarla, es increíble. ¿Qué es lo que ven ahí? ¿A qué se les parece lo que ven ahí? ¿Quién me puede decir algo que se le venga a la mente? ¿Qué ven ahí? ¿Qué les parece? Piensen. A ver, ¿quién quiere ganarse un premio? Yo tengo aquí un premio de alta tecnología. A ver, ¿a qué se parece? Tiene mucha vida, tiene muchos colores, pero ¿qué puede ser? Puede ser una bufanda, ¿será una bufanda hecha por la abuelita? ¿Será un cuadro moderno? ¿Plantas? Podrían ser plantas vistas desde arriba. Les voy a decir algo. Ustedes, do you have tawa here? Do you have your seed? Thank you. ¿Ustedes alguna vez vieron la semilla de la tagua? ¿No han visto nunca? Bueno, la semilla de la tagua es una semilla blanca, dura, y se le conoce como el marfil vegetal. Thank you, Mark. Esto es, obviamente ya está cortada porque de aquí salen botones o salen figurines, se hacen las típicas figuritas de recuerdo para souvenir del Ecuador. Les cuento que esto que tenemos aquí es el alimento del embrión de la semilla que después germina y crece otra palmera. La tagua es una palmera. Y lo que se ve ahí es el tejido interno, las células, las paredes celulares. Fíjense qué belleza lo que ven ahí. Eso está revelado gracias a la lente polarizada del microscopio. Pero ese es un secreto que está guardado aquí dentro. ¿Cómo lo sacamos? ¿Cómo nos hacemos dueños de ese secreto? Ahí va la ciencia, ahí va la tecnología. Actualmente, estos residuos de tagua que salen de las botoneras que hay en Manabí se queman en hornos, se queman en calderos porque sirven como leña. Pero después de ver esa joya que vieron ahí, ¿no les daría pena quemar esto? ¿Y para qué sirve eso, no? ¿Para qué sirven esos colores? Bueno, de eso nosotros extraemos el secreto mejor guardado de la tagua, que es la celulosa, la nanocelulosa, que es un compuesto que está en todas las plantas, pero cuando está en ese tamaño es sumamente versátil y puede ser empleado para la biomedicina o para cosméticos. ¿Sí? Aquí tengo un ejemplo de eso. Este es un cosmético de alta tecnología. ¿Cómo funciona? Se forma una matriz, es decir, esas partículas de celulosa hacen que, por ejemplo, células puedan crecer en esa matriz y se puedan reemplazar en el futuro órganos o piel, por ejemplo, porque han crecido en esa matriz. Se puede guardar medicamentos para que sean liberados. Es decir, esta es una matriz que sirve para muchísimas aplicaciones y por eso nuestra compañía se llama así, Panomatrix, que significa la matriz para todo. Y aquí nosotros, esta es nuestra ciencia, bueno, dos de nuestros últimos artículos generados en este año. El primero que habla sobre las oportunidades para la valorización de esos residuos que vieron ustedes. para producir nanocelulosa. Eso es, digamos, lo primero, ¿no? ¿Cómo se produce nanocelulosa a partir de la tagua? Y ahora que tienes nanocelulosa, ¿para qué sirve? Segundo artículo fue publicado también este año en Nature Scientific Reports. Con estas nanopartículas, así como podemos atrapar células o compuestos químicos, podemos atrapar al virus del COVID y también al virus del SIDA y podemos evitar las infecciones. Si hubiésemos tenido esta tecnología en el año 2019, probablemente hubiésemos evitado millones de muertes en el mundo. Pero estaremos listos para la próxima pandemia. Ya está aquí esto, por favor. Y esta es nuestra biorefinería, este es nuestro campo de acción. Ahí trabajamos con mi equipo, desarrollando nuevos productos, combustibles, fertilizantes, alimentos, a partir de la biomasa del Ecuador, a partir de nuestra biodiversidad. Y bueno, para ir terminando mi charla de hoy, voy a decirles que si ven ustedes ese tubito a la izquierda, no parece nada, ¿no? Es solamente un tubito con un gel adentro. Pero si tienen ustedes ese estado mental y espiritual de llevar ese gel a algo más, a un siguiente nivel, entonces podrán desvelar la belleza de esto. Aquí, por ejemplo, en esas esferas nosotros tenemos células inmovilizadas. Esa es una matriz. Y esas células pueden servir para producir una serie de productos, ¿no? Incluyendo la cerveza 1566, de paso. Ahí esas células podrían ser levaduras. Pero lo que tenemos ahora es este cosmético. Hemos logrado capturar la esencia y la belleza de esto. Y ahora está aquí. Y eso gracias a la alianza de la Universidad Católica, que es socia de Panomatrix y que es la primera universidad que tiene laboratorios de investigación y desarrollo en los Estados Unidos con una empresa propia, como les había dicho antes. Y muy importante, aquí la universidad localmente también desarrolla negocios nuevos y por eso hay una escuela de emprendimiento que está en formación, que está ya arrancando. Y tenemos aquí una de las representantes, que es Mayra, una gran amiga mía, y que les puede ayudar a dar sus primeros pasos en el emprendimiento. Nadie es emprendedor global de primera. Hay que empezar desde abajo, desde pequeño, y luego seguir creciendo. Así que con esto quiero agradecerles. Y si es que alguien quiere esto, yo tengo unas pocas muestras. Sí. Ahora voy. Ya vamos.
Que entremos. Yeah.
Yeah, here, let me do this.
Okay, thank you to our speakers and to all of you for being here. Without your support, an event like this would not have been possible. This is just an example of how the Puce innovates, transforms, and leaves its mark. Just to let you know that organizers have chosen this place for you to enjoy the exhibition of the university's milestones to commemorate the 77th anniversary. So please feel free to walk around and enjoy the exhibition. Por favor, chicos, a los que tienen los equipos de traducción simultánea, por favor, entregarlos al equipo de comunicación y muchas gracias por su compañía.